Welcome back to AutoTechNick, and today I'm going to be walking you guys through a very thorough inspection on this 2013 Ferrari 458 Spider. I have a lot that I want to share with you guys, so let's jump right on into it. So here is a quick peek at this stunning 2013 Ferrari 458 Spider. And this car is a great example of a car for the first 458 we're going to be showcasing here on the channel. Now, this car is a viewer's car. It actually came all the way up from San Francisco for me to run through and do the service, plus some other modifications we're going to be doing to the car. So I'm really excited about this car, really excited about the content coming your way. I think for this video, my plan is to really work through the inspection off camera, get the car fully inspected. Then I'm going to bring you guys back once the car is inspected. I'm going to talk about what we found on this particular car. I'm also going to talk about specific areas and items you want to look for while you're working on or inspecting a 458. What I need to do is get the car fully inspected, all the under trays off, and get all that information in front of me so I can bring you guys along that journey. But before we do so, I'm going to jump in and show you guys the footage from last week when I was able to get the car out on the road for our initial road test and evaluation of the car. Once we're done with that road test, I'll bring you guys back after the car is inspected and we'll go over all of our findings. Well, it has been quite a long time since I've driven a 458, and I gotta tell you, I am glad to be back in them. You know, this car is a 2013. When this car came out, that's when I was in the dealerships working on these things daily. So to say that I'm familiar with this platform and these cars is an understatement. Also, there's the whole sentimental attachment, right? I was in the dealers, these are brand new, doing PPIs. Being in these cars brings back a lot of memories. So it's good to be back in one. And this is a great spec of a 458 to break the 458 cherry on the channel, so to speak. This car is well appointed, very well optioned. Looking forward to this drive and giving this car a good evaluation. So this car does have aftermarket exhaust on it. It also does have a software tune. But one thing we do need to keep in mind or evaluate on the exhaust is the sound, the volume, and the tone, because that's one thing the customer has mentioned to me. So let's see. Our power delivery is good. The exhaust sounded pretty good. I think we could probably make it a little bit better. There's one thing that I will note on the exhaust. We'll put it into 7th gear here. It's a little loud, like right now when we're cruising. I'm most positive that this exhaust eliminated the bypass valves or the factory valving. I actually think that there's a lot of benefit to keeping the valving. So that's one thing we're gonna have to kind of inspect and look at when we're underneath the car. Get off the freeway. So it sounded pretty decent under power, under full throttle. On a dual clutch car like this, we're not worried about the clutch slipping. Really what I'd want to pay attention to is gears jumping, where it would jump, say, go from 3rd to 5th and skip 4th. That's usually when these transmissions go into a failure mode, that's how they start to behave. We've got this, ran through our Manatino settings, everything's good there. I have it in the soft suspension or the bumpy road mode. Interior wise, I'm not hearing too many rattles. It's actually pretty quiet. So far our suspension feels nice and tight. I don't feel any looseness or plays or any rattling going over any bumps. I do hear a faint metallic rattle from the rear of the car. That would be back there, maybe around the exhaust area. So we'll note that. Once we have the diffuser and under trays off, we will give that a good inspection. We got the heater in here running. Everything's good. One thing on this car we'll take a look at in a little bit here, but the sticky buttons. Chronic Ferrari problem. It has that. The finish is peeling off on a lot of them. Some of them are sticky. There's various different forms of failure of the buttons that we're experiencing right now. I don't know if you guys caught this new camera I've been playing around with on the channel. It has a nice little clip for the hat, so I decided I'd give you guys a little POV view of driving the car. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the POV view better, or do you like the camera I have over there in the corner? Obviously, we got the camera back there on the exhaust so we can hear the car, and our front view camera, but I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. What's the better point of view you guys want to see? So one of the, I think, lesser known benefits of the 458 Spiders is the rear window. Drop our rear window down and it gives you an extra shot of the exhaust, which is a great feature. I love it. The client warned me that this car was loud, and yes, I think it's almost too loud. My car to be loud when I'm getting on it and driving it hard, but I want it to be moderate when I'm not, so it's enjoyable, so you can talk, you don't have to raise your voice. Drone on the exhaust will wear you out driving a car for a long period of time, and this one, with the back window down, roll that back up. It is loud. I'm interested to get under the car, get a good look at the exhaust, and see what is actually there, and then see if there's any recommendations we're going to have for the client on how we can make his experience better with the car, because I do think we can. I do think there's opportunity to make it much better. All right, we're going to roll our window down again, because we're going to get on the freeway and I want to pay attention to our exhaust. I want to roll into it a little easier. I'm not trying to just go all out on the car, and I don't really want to break traction, but I do want to stretch it out a little bit, hear the exhaust, make sure it's running good. So we'll let that car get a bit of a gap in front of us. We have it in sport mode, so it shouldn't do anything too crazy. I'm confident that we can make this car sound a lot better. It's missing that high pitch, high RPM F1 sound, that high pitch shriek. I think we could get it there. I think we could get it to have less drone, be a bit more manageable when you're driving the car. So that's definitely on the list. One thing I'll note, this car is equipped with steering wheel LEDs, but they did not turn on when I fired the car up, and they did not turn on when I was running the car through the gears. So that's a good benefit, or another reason why we do test these cars out, because we do need to take a look at those and see if we can diagnose why those LEDs are not working. But you can tell, like right now, we're doing 66 miles an hour, 7th gear. The car's tracking good, the steering's straight, the suspension's tight. But I can tell you, we've only been in the car for a couple minutes, and that exhaust, it does drone. We've got a little 4C that just passed us there. All right, we got no one around us, so we're going to test the ABS. Everything's good there. I've said it in these videos several times, but you would be surprised on what we find when I'm test driving these cars. It's always good to put it through the paces, get it in the ABS if you can, and try the function test everything on the car. You know, one of the more unique features of the 458 is it was really the first Ferrari that had all the controls incorporated onto the steering wheel for the turn signals and your suspension and your lights. The windshield wipers, it's all right there. I think this is a great example of how intuitive that system is. I remember when I first started driving these cars, it wasn't too hard to learn it and really get familiar and comfortable with it. It felt very natural. It's been upwards of 7 years since I last driven a 458 in a car with these steering wheel controls, and I hopped back in it and I haven't missed a beat. It's almost like going from an automatic to a stick shift, where really you just don't notice the difference and you acclimate to what you're driving in, which tells you this system with all the controls on the steering wheel, it's natural. It's just intuitive. It's how it's supposed to be. And I kind of grew fond of it over the years, you know. It's on these cars, really, when you separate from 430 to 458, there's a pretty significant horsepower increase. You know, 430, it's pretty moderate, just a little over 500 horsepower, which I think is perfect for a street car. You get into a factory 458, and they're doing 560. This car has exhaust and it's tuned, so it's going to probably be more than that. But where I'm going at is, you know, 500 horsepower is, in my opinion, the perfect amount for a street car. Above that is starting to get in the world of excess. And when you get into the 500 plus horsepower. When I'm driving the car, I rather have two hands on the steering wheel. It does not bother me that I don't have a stick shift as much. I can have both hands on the steering wheel. I can have all the control of the car because, well, the car is going to test my limits a bit more. But all my buttons and controls for my blinkers, shifters, everything's right there. Your hands don't really have to move. So I really do think it works really well. The power delivery of these cars is almost too much for the street. Then you get into, say, like a 488. Those things are ballistic. Absolutely crazy how fast they are. Everything past that, it's just incredible numbers. The cars are insanely fast, but you have to be so much more cautious and careful driving them because they are so fast. That's kind of why I'm drawn to the older cars. We all know I have a soft spot for the 355s. I've always said it. It's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. Overall, this car is solid. It's strong. It's a great car. So let's get it back to the shop, get it on the lift, and get this car inspected and see what kind of condition it's really in. So we're back from our road test. We have completed the inspection of our 458, and I got to start by saying, like, man, it really was great to get back into a 458, drive the car. Really forgot just how great of cars they are. Absolutely fantastic cars, and what an example of a 458 we have here in the shop. I mean, for the first 458 on the channel, this is a killer 458 to have here. It is optioned incredibly well. Before we jump in and start talking about the specifics of 458s that you want to talk about or look for on these cars, I just wanted to show you guys or highlight real quick this particular car and really why it's got me so excited. Now we can see that it's a Rosa Corsa car. This is a 2013. We can also see that it's a Spider. It's a two-tone car. A lot of people will use a vinyl wrap to change the color of these, but this is actually a factory two-tone car, meaning this is painted, the roof is painted black as well. You can probably already spot that this car has all of the carbon fiber. So we have pretty much all the carbon fiber inside the car. Carbon fiber steering wheel, clusters, side controls, center controls, and really the most importantly, you can't see here, but it has the carbon fiber sport seats, which I highly prefer, not just because of the looks and aesthetics, but you actually sit, it feels like you sit about an inch and a half lower in the carbon fiber seats than you do the standard 458 seats. It's the same in the 430. And for me, I feel that just a little bit lower puts me in the perfect position in these cars. I always felt that the upholstered seats just has me a little bit higher than I want to be. I like to sit low in my cars. Pretty much every car I have, I run the seats down as low as possible. That has just always been my preference. So when the cars have these carbon fiber seats, they don't have much adjustability, but they are just at the right height. So this car is optioned really well. Obviously black interior, red stitching, nice touches like the red seat belt. This one has a yellow tack, which is probably my preference on these cars. And we'll jump up here. So this is a factory option, the carbon fiber Scuderia shield, and he has the matching carbon fiber wheel center caps. So everything's tied in together really nicely. But you can see that we have, I presume that these are factory winglets up here that are carbon fiber. Then it has aftermarket additions here, carbon fiber spoiler on the bottom. It has some Novatec carbon fiber pieces up here. You can see carbon fiber rocker trim that's on it, carbon fiber taillight covers, spoiler up here. This is a factory option piece here, this carbon fiber trim. It's off the car right now, but it has an aftermarket carbon fiber diffuser. These side pieces here are carbon fiber. I mean, I wasn't kidding. This car has all of the carbon fiber. It's actually really impressive. This entire car has a PPF on it, which again is something I'm a big fan of. I really like that. It makes maintaining the car so much easier. Yeah, you have the paint correction. You don't have to worry about swirls and scratches as much. My M5 is black, and a lot of that car is PPF'd, and actually for a black car, I think that is the ultimate. You get it detailed, polished to perfection, put a PPF on it, then ceramic coat your PPF, and maintenance is a breeze. Oh my gosh, it was life-changing because black cars are tough. So this car's got a PPF. I really support that. It's got the 5-spoke wheels. They've been painted gloss black, and red calipers there we can see. So it's a really well-appointed, well optioned and configured 458. It has quite a bit of aftermarket stuff on it, but it all ties in together. It looks pretty great. This car is sitting at just about 18,000 miles, so it's, you know, right in the nice sweet range where it's still considered relatively low mileage, but also not so low where you're worried about driving the car and putting any more miles on it. So that's a quick crash course on this particular car. Let's start talking about what you're going to want to look for if you're looking to inspect or purchase a 458. Since we have the car here on the ground, we'll start talking about the body. And it's going to be a pretty quick conversation, guys, because unlike the 430s, there's really not a lot of weird quirks on the bodies of these 458s that you need to pay attention to. You know, we do not have the issues with loose taillights. We do not have the issues with loose mirrors. There's really, honestly, really no chronic or plaguing problems. You're just going to want to look over the car, make sure all of your gaps are good. It's standard stuff you're going to do when you're looking at a car. Make sure there's no damage, no dents, no dings. One thing I will say it's kind of specific to the 458s, 430s, is when you're closing the bonnet, it's up to you. You can hold it up a ways and drop it so it shuts and latches, or I set them down and I use the palm of my hand and I push on the Ferrari logo. If you push down here on this edge, if I have this open, you'll see that there's right here is right where the reinforcement is. It'll actually put a small crease in it. And you can see this car it's never happened to this car, which is good. It's real subtle. Most people don't pick it up, but it will crease that. So do be careful on these cars when you're closing them. I like to set these all the way down and just gently push it and latch it. So that way I'm just not putting any undue stress and force in it. But other than that, all of our gaps are good. Check your gaps, dents, bumpers. And, just like any Ferrari, you're going to check underside for scrapes and damages. But these cars, body-wise, they're super solid cars. There's, not much to worry about at all. This is a Spider, so you have the convertible top, but this is a retractable hard top. So underneath here, under the tonneau, we have two panels. And unlike the California M, Portofino, this top is much simpler, meaning those cars have 3 roof panels and the deck lid. So there's the potential for interference on those, where the panels could collide with one another and cause damage. There's a lot more micro switches and sensors in those roofs. The 458 is incredibly basic. The tonneau opens, and it's just basically one mechanism that closes the roof, and as it closes, it inserts the 2 panels in position. There's basically no way that those panels could hit each other and cause any damage. So I'm saying that since the mechanism and the kinematics of it don't have the threat of any interference issues, electronic-wise, this has half the sensors, half the micro switches. It's a far simpler system electronically and mechanically. I think in my career, I've only had 1 or 2 that had roof issues with these retractable hardtops on a 458, 488, F8. It's all the same top. And it was like a small adjustment to get a micro switch in range. It is a completely different story on these hardtops versus the California, the 3-piece hardtops. I wouldn't even worry about these at all. And if you compare it to, say that 430 with the canvas top, huge upgrade, huge improvement. Not to mention you have a glass back window. The silhouette of the car, it doesn't even look like a Spider when the top is closed. When it's opened, they nailed it with these. So if you're looking for a Spider, don't fret. Don't worry about the fact that it's a Spider and that, it may be extra repairs from what you hear from 430s and 360s. These cars are easy peasy, really nothing to worry about. Body-wise, we're taken care of. I guess we'll just jump into the interior right now. Just like any Ferrari. Sticky buttons, the soft touch. They still use the same terrible soft touch finish on 458s. You can see that this car is suffering from it, where it's starting to peel right here on our control switch. It's been removed here on our steering wheel controls. It's still the original sticky stuff down there for our glove box. So every piece of this car is in a different state of stickiness. Over here on our VDA button, get you in, you can see our graphics are starting to wear off, where it's getting all white. So unfortunately, 458s, they still use the finish. I think it's a well-known problem at this point. Ironically, at that 430 back there, I actually just finished removing all of that interior, sending those buttons out to get refinished, reinstalling them, which makes a dramatic difference. It is a big expense. It's a big commitment to have that done, but it's a one-and-done thing. You get it taken care of done once. You get it done by the right vendor that does a quality job. It's something that you'll never have to worry about again. And you'll always hear me harp on this when it comes to stuff like that. you are sitting in this car and spending most of your time in the driver's seat driving the car, staring at all these items. That is the place to spend your money once you have your car mechanically sorted. Obviously, you want it mechanically sorted where all the needs are taken care of. And then if you have the discretionary funds to address some of the cosmetic stuff, do the sticky buttons. It looks so much better when it has the proper finish. It doesn't have this shiny finish on it where it looks, I mean, it looks like it's out of a Nissan. It's subjective. It doesn't bother some people. And I will say, be careful when you're buying a car. I come into this all the time when I'm doing remote PPIs or local PPIs here. Someone inquires about a car. They'll ask about the sticky buttons. The seller's like, oh, there's no sticky buttons. Well, yeah, there could be no sticky buttons because they could have went and removed all the finish and you're left with something like this. Versus a car that doesn't have any sticky buttons either, but everything's been refinished. So you need to specify and clarify if it has actually had the refinishing done. It's not just if the buttons are physically sticky. It's what is the current state of the buttons and all these trim pieces and their condition and the finish that's on them, because it's a big investment to get it taken care of. And I countless times I go to inspect a car and the buyer's thinking that it doesn't need the sticky stuff addressed, and I look at the car and I'm like, well, I mean, nothing's sticky, but it needs to be refinished, which it doesn't matter if it's sticky or not, it still needs to be refinished is the bottom line. So I would pay attention to that. On this particular car, pretty common on 458s, our binnacle leather is starting to lift, bubble, and peel. Part of that is the foam that's holding it on. Other part of it is the glue for the leather. We have a few other items in this car that is doing the same on our A pillars, a little bit on our B pillars, small pieces on our door pillars. So again, that's just normal Ferrari stuff. It's frustrating. I don't know what it is, what they're doing there in the factory, but I mean, I have my M5, which I referenced earlier. It's a 2001 M5. It has a leather dash, factory leather dash. I have the full extended leather option in it, and that car is from 2001, and it's still, cross our fingers, knock on wood, it has no issues with the leather. So, I mean, the Germans got it figured out. I don't know what Ferrari's deal is. I don't know why that is the case, but again, sticky buttons, leather, pretty much any Ferrari, depending on the age, where it's at. Cars from Arizona, California, Texas, and Florida, way worse on all of those items. You pretty much count on it years earlier than other cars. Here in Seattle, it's really honestly a really mild climate. Sure, we get all the rain, but our temperature-wise year-round is, I would say in the winter we average 40 degrees, 50 degrees. In the summer, it's like 85 degrees with no wind. Summers are amazing here. But as what I'm saying is that there's really no huge extremes. Yeah, we have a fair amount of moisture in the winter, but in the summertime, there's like no moisture in the air. So the cars that I see that stay and live in the Seattle area or the Pacific Northwest really are kind of above and beyond a car that comes from Florida. Florida, those hot lower states, Arizona, Texas, California, are brutal to these cars. Absolutely brutal. That's really, I mean, like I said, the interior. You're going to check the leather, check the sticky, check the function of everything. On this particular car, it is one of the things that the client asked me to look at, which I did note on the test drive. Our steering wheel LEDs, they're not working. That is controlled, these steering wheel LEDs up here, that is controlled by the NVO, which is a circuit board down here in the bottom of the steering wheel. Very high failure rate, very high failure rate. So you can get a factory Ferrari circuit board and put it in. Unfortunately, you need to have the proper scan tool to program that circuit board to the car because it needs the proxy file from the NBC, which is the body computer, which is like the configuration file. So you need to be able to redeploy that file, tell the car that it has that NVO, tell the NVO that it's in that car, and authorize it essentially to work. There is, that I've never used, but there is people that sell them pre-programmed to fit for your car. They look like they're coming from overseas in Asia. They're a third of the price of the factory boards. I've never tried one. I've never had a client want to go for one. I don't know if they're good or bad. I mean, the factory boards have a high failure rate, so I don't know. Maybe it's a third of the price. I mean, the factory ones aren't that great anyway, so maybe it's better. But that is a common problem. Failed NVOs, steering wheel LEDs that don't work, very common problem on any of the later cars that have those. So it's one thing to watch out and keep an eye on. But everything on this car, like I said, electronically, mechanically, it works good. If you're in the car, obviously you're going to be paying attention if there's any check engine lights or warnings in the cluster. Very common thing, if there's a warning in the cluster that says vehicle not programmed, that is telling you that there's an ECU that's not online. So there's an ECU that either didn't wake up, is shorted or failed, or there's basically an electrical problem in the car. You have a ECU that's not reporting. It throws that yellow triangle in the cluster, gives you that warning. So that could mean a lot of things. In general, it means you have an electrical problem that you need to have diagnosed. Let's get the engine lid opened, take a peek in there real quick, and start talking about the top side here of the engine. All right, so since we have a Spider, we have a view of pretty much nothing. You know, a view of your air box. This is our power steering fill, our oil tank there, and our coolant reservoir. So when I do my inspections, I've run through, pressure test the cooling system. I set it to 15 PSI, be sure there's no leaks. Oil level, this is a dry sump car. Any Ferrari that's a dry sump, I set the oil level to the minimum mark when the oil's fully up to temperature after I've driven the car and it's hot. I set that oil to the minimum mark. If you go above that, that is considered overfilled, and that's where you can start to pull oil into the intake track of the engine, and that causes a whole another world of problems for you. If it's a wet sump oil system on a Ferrari, I set the oil level to the full mark on the dipstick. So you have to know what type of oil system you have. I know how counterintuitive it is to hear that you set the oil level to the minimum mark on a dry sump, but if you look at this tank, it is sitting here on top of the gearbox, and you can see that this dipstick is actually not terribly long, what, 12 inches? When we get underneath the car, you're going to see that that bottom of the oil tank is flush with the bottom of the engine. So the overall height of that oil tank is, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 2 feet more. And it gets real narrow at the bottom and it's at the top. Is what I'm saying is the difference of the minimum mark, the maximum mark in that oil tank, if you consider the overall shape and size of the oil tank and how much oil is sitting in it, and you got to think or keep this in mind, in a dry sump oil system, all of the oil is sitting in the tank, not in the engine. The engine is ran under a vacuum. There's scavenging pumps pulling that oil out of the engine. That is their top priority. Get the oil out of the engine, get the crankcase under a vacuum, put the oil in the oil tank. So if this car takes 10 liters of oil, you essentially probably have, that's conservatively, say you have 7 or 8 liters of oil sitting in that oil tank. So it's not like you're going to have the oil pickup not have enough oil and cause a loss of oil pressure and damage to the engine. It's completely the opposite. You have to understand how they work, where the oil sits at, because the pickup is at the bottom of that tank. So all of the oil that we put in this car, 8 quarts, 8 plus liters of oil is sitting on top of that pickup. And the issue with going from minimum to maximum on the dipstick, it gets into where the crankcase breather lines tie into the top of the oil tank, where the oil gets just a little bit too full in there. It can start to aerate and foam, and then it can get sucked into the engine. That is a bit of a crash course on that, but you can see there's not a lot to look at up here. I will say that these cat bushings right here on 458s, those tear and crack frequently, so inspect those and make sure that they're good condition and good health, which these ones are. And on this car, it's hard to see, but we have our flap right here, this mechanism on the intake, and there's a shaft up here on the top side. Those commonly jam up and cause check engine lights and faults in the NCMs. It's a vacuum actuated system. There's 3 flaps in general, 3 flaps on the engine. 2 of them are connected to each other and use one vacuum actuator to operate them. The other one is independent, so it's really 2 systems that you're checking. There's vacuum lines, there's solenoids that you need to check, there's heim joints that seize up. So they're problematic. Sometimes you can free them up, sometimes you have to pull the intake, kind of fuss with things. You can pull them apart, maybe replace the heim joints if you need to. If you have a problem with those, you'll see it. There'll be a fault stored in the NCMs. But on a car like a coupe, you can actually take a Sharpie and run a line on those shafts, which we commonly did on the challenge cars. So we just quickly glance and make sure that they're operating right and see if they're functioning. But you can see here on a Spider that you don't really have the visibility to do so. However, you guys may not know, on the Spiders, there is this panel right here that sits directly underneath this tonneau cover and the convertible top that covers the top side of the engine. And obviously, I already have it off, and I had that off so I can inspect the top side of the engine. So I'm going to close the deck lid here. I'm going to get the convertible top opened and the tonneau opened so that way I can show you the top side, because that's probably a view you guys have not seen. So let me get this configured, and I'll bring you guys back here in a second. So here's what we're looking at. I have the two roof panels closed, but I left the tonneau in the up position. Now the key is off. You can hear it beeping at me because it's not happy because it didn't complete the cycle. But this will stay this way indefinitely. The top is hydraulically ran, so it'll eventually turn off the solenoids and valves, bleed the pressure down, and close the top. So since it's already in the closed position, we don't have to worry about it. Tonneau cover, not a worry. It'll stay here open all day long. Now, you can see, and I'll give you a light. I thought I had my light. There we go. We have outstanding visual access to the engine. It's actually probably better than a coupe because I'm not working over a gigantic C-pillar trying to reach into a big hole working on the engine. Spiders are actually arguably better to work on engine-wise than a coupe. So you can see there's our shafts and our three valves I was talking about right there on our intake, and drop down here, give you guys a quick tour. This is our high pressure pump. It's driven off the intake camshaft, so it drives all the, increases the fuel pressure for the direct injection. You can see our coils down there, cam sensors back there. See a lot of grime on our valve cover here. This is a fuel vapor separator here. This is our left-hand fuel tank with our fuel sender and pickup on that side. Our secondary air pump's positioned right over there. Right-hand fuel tank, pickup, coolant expansion tank, and you can probably catch a glimpse there of the other high-pressure fuel pump on the other side. And that's really about all that we can see. You can see a lot of the convertible top kinematics there. Actually, you can see a sneak peek of our seat belt and the interior of our car. And this is actually a cheat for me because Spiders, if I'm running any aftermarket wiring into the car, I'll actually feed it up in from the engine bay from this wire and grommet right here that was on our tray. I kind of moved it out of the way. You have enough space. It sits kind of like this, but I moved it out of the way so I can get that tray out. And that tray is only held in, you can see all the bolts here, with a bunch of 10mm bolts all the way around. So it's pretty easy. There's a weather stripping seal you pull off here, pull all that hardware off. There's a couple hidden guys underneath the carpet here, but it pops out and gives you all that access. So if you need to do anything with your high pressure fuel pump, really it comes down to getting to your spark plugs and coils. If you need to do a coil blow, that depends on your engine number, but you have a lot of access. You can see our secondary air non-return valve down there, that little silver guy right there. So you got quite a bit of nice access. You can't open this deck lid because it will interfere with the tonneau, so this has to be closed. If we're doing any in-depth repairs, we actually will just take this off completely, leave the tonneau open, and then you actually have pretty much full access back here. There's really no reason to remove the tonneau from the car. You can work around it. But we'll come over here to the right side. I keep turning my light off on accident. And again, you can see I have really good access to all of our coils, high pressure pump, pretty much everything I need. We can check our valves, our intake, and this piece you can take out. It does bolt in, but again, you only really need to do that. Say if we had to remove the intake manifold, you'd see that it crosses off, but we'd have to take off our deck lid like I just talked about right there. And there's some more wiring in these cablings right here. This Bowden cable is what runs our flap mechanism here for the convertible top. You can see it's connected right there, feeds down. That's what it's operating. So our convertible top pump is underneath that foam right there. So you have a pretty good view of everything here with the Spiders. And again, 4 5/8, not a whole lot to pay attention to. Valve cover gaskets starting to leak. That is one thing. You can see a lot of grime on this particular car, but I got in there with a mirror and there's really no dripping or anything really that's indicating that it needs valve cover gaskets. That is one thing, you know, that's anything with rubber and age, they're going to start leaking. They're going to start causing oil to seep out, drip out. That's all pretty normal. So with that, I'm going to get our top closed back up so that way we get the car raised up. There's a couple things I want to talk about on the brakes, and I'm going to drop you guys in, and there's some stuff that we need to talk about on the bottom side of the car. Since all 4 5/8 come with CCMs or carbon ceramic brakes, there's a couple things I want to talk about so you guys know what to look for when you're inspecting a car. Now, if you take a peek at these rotors, and you can actually see that right in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the reflection of my toolboxes back there. That gives you a good idea of how smooth these rotors are, the surfaces, and how reflective. That right there is indication of essentially a brand new rotor. Now, these rotors, Ferrari dictates on some of them, they have the thickness on them stamped, but that's not really a good way to indicate the wear. There's also a minimum weight on the rotors that you'd have to take the rotor off the car. Then you have to clean all of the dust off the rotor and then weigh it. And if it's below the minimum weight, then it needs to be replaced. Officially, Ferrari's stance is you need to read out the rotor wear in the NQS, which is the instrument cluster, and that tells you the percentage of wear on the rotor. I've already done that on this car, and that is part of my normal inspections. I'm going to go through and document the rotor wear on every car, and these rears are at 3%, I think, or 2. It's 2 or 3%. I can't remember which split on the axle, but these are virtually no rotor wear whatsoever. Now, on our brake pads, you can just measure those typically like normally, and you're going to be looking for 9 millimeters. 9 millimeter is pretty much a brand new brake pad, and I'll tell you that for any Ferrari that's only been street driven, not been tracked, I have never replaced a set of brakes on it. Every set of carbon ceramics that I've ever replaced have been on like a Challenge Stradale or a Scuderia that's seen, you know, track days all summer long, and he maybe made it a season and a half out of them. Challenge cars, different story. Done a lot of carbon ceramics on challenge cars. But if you're looking at a car and your brake pads are thinner than 9 millimeters and you have a, you know, you're missing that gloss look on the rotor, maybe dig a little deeper, look a little bit deeper, because it could have more wear on the brakes. Now, I've heard that some aggressive acids or cleaners can cause some damage to the rotors and maybe change that appearance. I don't own a Ferrari, and I don't have the privilege of washing one and using those products on one over a long period of time to know. So it's hard to say, but I do have right here a rotor off of a 458 Challenge car, and this rotor is pretty much, very much so done. But you can look and see that there's essentially no reflection on it whatsoever, and it basically looks like it has open pores, or like the fibers have been ripped out of it. And I wish you guys could feel how rough this is. You might be able to hear it, my hand running over it. It is a terrible surface. On the back side, it's probably just as bad. It's incredibly rough. So this right here, if you see a car with rotors like that, that's from a lot of heat, a lot of brake wear, heavy braking, a lot of use. These rotors, you can see the immediate difference, and I rub my hand on it and be quiet, and it almost makes no sound at all. So if you're inspecting a car, you should read out the rotor wear in the instrument cluster, but also that is just a good quick visual to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Now, if you have a car that actually has worn out rotors, really the only side effect that I've noticed is it chews through brake pads. So like this rotor, granted, I don't know how worn it is or the weight. I don't remember any of that. Obviously, if you keep wearing it, it's going to have, you know, diminishing effects on its structural integrity. Really is what happens is this rotor is just going to chew through a brand new brake pad. You're going to put a brake pad on, it won't last very long at all. It just chews right through it. You put on another set. So your brake pad wear is going to just skyrocket because of how rough these rotors are. I can't stress enough, on 99.9% of the street cars you're looking at, you're going to want to expect to see a rotor that looks similar to this, and you're going to want to see 9 millimeter on your brake pad. Check your brake fluid moisture content. That's really important. It should be 2% or lower. If it's anything above 2%, it's going to need a brake fluid flush. Depending on the car, the environment it sits in, high moisture in the brake fluid causes the brake lines to swell. It causes like this white wax material to build up in the brake fluid, which ends up plugs lines, ports, solenoids. It gets into the ABS control unit and wreaks havoc. So it's usually if a car is in a humid environment, or if it's sitting next to the ocean or a lake or a river, you'll see higher brake fluid. That's what to look for, and those are the causes of it. Another thing why we're doing our scans in the car, tire pressure sensors. So in general on this car, this rear tire is from, right here is the 13th week of 2020. So this tire is 6 years old. It's 2026 today. That's about Ferrari's borderline recommendation for new tires. This particular car, it's also at 3 millimeter tread, 6 years old. When I drove the car, that helps explain why I lost traction getting on the freeway, because we have old tires. They're starting to get hard. There's not much tread left. They're getting worn out. So that's one thing I need to talk to the client about, is like, you should probably consider getting new tires. But when you're inspecting the car, especially when you're considering putting tires on it, you need to go in and read out the battery life of your tire pressure sensors, because the last thing I want to do is put new tires on the car, and then a month later he gets a tire warning light on because a battery and a sensor is bad, and they have to dismount it and replace the sensor. So do check that on this particular car. They're all at 120 months, so we're in the okay range where we don't need to worry about that. But that is another point that we check during the inspection, and that's more focused on the electronics while I'm up there doing that. And we'll come up here to the front. So you can see on the front rotor, it has more of that kind of open pore or fiber look to it. So it's not, I mean, it's nothing near that Challenge rotor, but that just gives you a good contrast of the difference of the front as opposed to our rear. Now, if you're looking at any of the twin turbo V8s, so the 488 F8 and above, expect to see your condition of the rotors swapped from this car front to rear. You're going to have more wear on the rear rotor than you are the front. That is because those cars just make so much horsepower and so much torque, especially down low, that the traction control is always working on those cars, and it's applying the rear brakes to slow down the wheel speed or wheel spin, and it's not giving you a warning light in the cluster, and it's so good and smooth. A lot of drivers are not even aware that it's actually happening. So they think they're just getting on it and the car's driving great, and little do they know that they're probably getting a fraction of the horsepower the engine is making, and they're turning all that horsepower in the heat with the rear brakes on the rotors. So you're going to see more of that texture finish on the rear rotors, and you're going to see more wear on the rear brakes on those cars because of that. Capless fuel filler neck. These things are an absolute pain in the ass. They fail all the time. They have it's an overly complicated mechanism. They get stuck. They can develop cracks. It's the entire fuel filler neck you have to replace. Those fail. It'll cause a check engine light. It stores faults. Incredibly common, very annoying, happens very frequently. So you just replace the part and move on and hope that part lasts longer than the original. And we don't have that good of a view up here because I have the wheel and tire on, but I do have the fender liner out of the car, so you can see we have a full shot there on our exhaust manifolds. 458s are different than 430s. There's no catalytic converter in the manifolds. I think I've repaired one cracked exhaust manifold on a 458, and that was on a Challenge car, which is a completely different story than a street car, and I was able to weld it back up. Magnaride shocks. You're going to want to check for leaking, especially it seems if the car has been lowered, these things tend to kind of leak out all the Magnaride fluid. I guess the best rebuilder for these is overseas. I've never used them. I have not had an opportunity to do business with them to know how that works, so I can't recommend it. But do inspect all four shocks and be sure that there's no fluid leaking down them. You'll see it running down the body and the threads and everything. It's pretty obvious when it happens, and all these are dirty, but there's nothing leaking out of it. But failed shocks on 458s, very common. And while we're here, this is the right-hand NCM, so there's two NCMs for 458s, like most traditional Ferraris. So that's where it's at here. Again, the fender liner is out. This is our Eldor Ion module. Eldor Ion is actually a very clever and badass system. 458s do not use knock sensors. They use the Eldor Ion system to monitor knock for each individual cylinder. It is essentially, I should make a whole video on this. It's so cool. It's essentially using the spark plug to be a pressure transducer in each individual cylinder, so that way it can see what's happening with the quality of the combustion, the pressure, if there's a misfire, and then this NCMs are able to tailor the ignition timing specifically for each cylinder individually to prevent knock and maximize performance. Very cool system. They started it with the Scuderia. It's a very basic system in the Scuderia. 458 has it. As I mentioned, very cool system, worthy of a completely separate video on its own. If you really want a technical, deep down, nerdy video, I can make one on the Eldor Ion. Over here, driver's side, left-hand NCM, that small square box. Try to switch my hands. This guy here is a pickup for our tire pressure monitoring, and there's really not, like I said, you got your other exhaust. These manifolds on 458s are really robust. I don't see a lot of need for replacing them. You know, this car, if you get a glimpse, it has high flow catalytic converters, so we have that going for it. And we have our vacuum canister positioned back there for all of our vacuum devices. Sway bar up there, right where my finger is, that's our gearbox oil cooler. We have that tucked back underneath the bumper, so pretty straightforward. You can see a good view. If I pull the wheel and everything off, you have a much better view, but I'm feeling lazy today. I don't want to pop it off. Up here on the front, again, it's really more of the same. There's nothing too specific. You will want to check the shocks, check for any magnetic fluid, shake it down, check for any loose ball joints, anything abnormal. Suspension bushing, so far I haven't seen many failure points on 458s or on the lower ball joints. They seem pretty robust and good. So everything checks out over here. I will say on this one particular car, it has a unusual, it was unusual. This car has been lowered, and whoever lowered it, they did do an alignment, and you can see our jam nut there for our tie rod end is left loose. So that's something I'm gonna have to carry a conversation with our client on, if we either gonna tighten that back up or if we're gonna recheck the alignment on the car. You know, his tire wear looks good, so I think we can get away with just tightening it back up, but we'll let that be his discretion. And since we're under here, I'll give you a peek at the underside of the car. This is the floor of your trunk, and if your car is really low and this sees a lot of damage, this will crack, and that actually goes directly into your trunk. So you're going to want to check these for wear and the condition of them. Your radiators are right up underneath here. Pretty much never had any issues with those whatsoever up to this point, unless it was a crashed car. And then you have your tunnel here where your hard coolant lines feed into your radiators. They split side to side, your power steering lines, AC lines, heater lines, and they run to the rear of the car. And then up here, as we mentioned, any Ferrari, it's going to have, you know, scratch marks from, you know, steep driveways for ingress and egress. This carbon fiber spoiler, it's kind of got hit, and then they've added this skid on. So that's all to be expected. Very normal. Cosmetic. This one's actually, considering everything that it's lowered, isn't very bad whatsoever. So now we're back here at the rear of the car, and obviously I have the rear diffuser off and the rear under tray. Now, this car I mentioned earlier has an aftermarket rear diffuser, so these pieces and everything's a bit different from a factory car, how it's set up. So it has these mesh grills and whatnot. I will say, do pay attention to 458s. This is a common problem with them because of the MagneRide suspension, because essentially when the car, if it's on a flatbed tow truck, especially if the car is lowered, there's no current going through the MagneRide shocks, and that's what stiffens them up. So if a car is sitting on a tow truck, depending on how low it is and how it's strapped down on the tow truck, the suspension is actually incredibly soft, and you can just bounce the car like there's zero dampening in the shocks. And again, that's kind of another topic, kind of like the Eldor Ion, where I geek out because of the way the MagneRide works. It's super cool, super clever, and it's just an inherent byproduct of the way the shocks work. When there's no current going through the shocks, they essentially provide zero dampening. If you turn the key on and don't even start the car and then try to push down on the car, it radically changes. So it's unlike any other shock and system you've been on. But why this is important to talk about here is if the car is on a tow truck and they didn't, you know, the key's off, the car will bounce on the tow truck excessively. And it all depends on, like I said, how it's tied down. But what happens is when it bounces, it can actually hit the diffuser fins, push them up and crack the diffuser. And it actually could crack these pieces that on a factory car mount up right here and kind of come across the bottom of this piece. So that's very common to see a lot of damage back here from the cars being transported. It's just common. It's normal. So if you're looking at a car that has that damage, I wouldn't say that it's something rare or unusual. It's pretty typical. This car with its aftermarket diffuser had a few scraped fins, had a few impact marks. That's all pretty typical stuff. But we'll get up underneath the car. You can see that this car has, this is a, what is it here? Raging Bull exhaust. This explains why we didn't have the exhaust valves in the car and why it was so loud when we're driving the car, because it has no mufflers. The muffler would normally be right here. And then it has what I would consider a pretty poor attempt at an X-pipe right here, because your main flow of your exhaust is coming out of your high flow cats. It's going to go straight to where there is no X-pipe on either side, and not very much exhaust is going to route through here for your X-pipe. So this explains why the car is so loud. It explains why it drones, and it explains why I'm not a big fan of the tone of the exhaust. There's a lot of different exhausts for 458s, and I've kind of sat here and looked at this one, and I think all I can say is it's not how I would have designed an exhaust. So I don't understand the thought process on this particular system. The client and he already kind of indicated that he might want to be replacing this exhaust with a different system. So more to come on that, because I need to carry that conversation with him and see what he thinks. I think we could put a different system in that actually has mufflers, actually has a true X-pipe, and has valves, reconnect the valves, That way he's going to have better quality sound. He's not going to have any drone. It'll have valves. He can make it be loud. He can make it be quiet. I think there's just, it's going to increase the overall experience of this car and make it a lot nicer than this current system. The high flow cats, I have no issues with those. I think the ones that are installed are a 200 cell right now. And I think he actually has a set that came with the car that were 100 cell. And by changing those, that's just going to dictate essentially the volume of the exhaust, and obviously any odor with it. The less cell count we have, the more odor you're going to experience, the louder it's going to be. So I'll talk to him because that ties in with the exhaust. If he wants it to be really loud, maybe we switch the cats while we're doing the muffler and his car will be a little bit louder. But I think with the right system back here, we could get this thing to have a glorious high pitch F1-esque shriek from it. And this system, they have an X pipe. They were trying to do the right thing, but I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. But back here, gearbox. This is a dual clutch gearbox, radically different than this 430 that has a single clutch gearbox. That is a manual transmission with a dry single clutch like a regular stick shift car. That's why you can convert these cars. This is a dual clutch transmission. You cannot convert it. It's basically, this is a blend of a automatic transmission and a manual transmission. Again, 458s are really different. You can tell I could geek out on these cars all day long. I can make a separate video about how these transmissions work. They're super cool, super clever, but it has two clutches, one for the odd shaft, one for the even shaft. One clutch is engaged, one clutch is disengaged. When you shift gears, it's actually, I mean, it's not immediately shifting gears, it's actually swapping clutches, and then after the fact, the transmission shifts gears and it anticipates your movement. Like I said, worthy of another video, but on these transmissions, you want to check for external leaks, make sure there's no leaks there. They've had some problems with that. You want to get in and scan the gearboxes and check the pressure sensors, which I'll probably make a separate video showing you guys how to do that. The pressure sensors develop a bias, they get an offset, they have a skewed reading, and that causes a lot of problems. I cannot tell you guys how many pressure sensors I have replaced in the gearbox. It's a big repair. You got to pull the gearbox apart pretty much, or out of the car, pretty much fully apart and all the way back together. Other issues inside these are speed sensors and some of the other sensors. Hardware-wise, like mechanically, like say synchronizers, gear sets, things like that, these are actually quite robust. Clutches, very few failures. It's kind of like the electronics. The early gearboxes had a lot of issues with the wire harnesses rubbing, chafing, and shorting wires. I mean, I don't think I've done any hard component repair to these gearboxes. It's all been sensors, pressure sensors, wiring harnesses, things of that nature, solenoids. So I'd say these are pretty robust, but if you even have something as small as a pressure sensor, which isn't that expensive for the part itself, the labor to get this gearbox out and apart, the sensor replaced back together back in the car is actually a pretty big job. You can get the gearbox out of the car relatively easily. You can pull this cross brace, the engine can stay in, it comes out from the bottom, pull it out, but you're still looking at several days of work to get this gearbox torn down, everything cleaned up, replaced, and put back together. It's pretty complicated. And it does house two fluids and multiple chambers. It's not a simple two-chamber setup. It has gear oil in it for the gear setup, and then also has a ATF type oil for the hydraulics for the shift actuator plate and the clutches. So two separate oils, and the fills up through the bottom. That's actually a drain there, but it fills up over here. This is one of them, and it has a long tube that goes up and in, and you basically fill it till the fluid gets to the level of that tube, then leaks out. So they're a real pain in the butt to fill fluid, check fluid, and deal with all that on. But that's your crash course on your gearboxes. Here's the bottom of our oil tank. We talked about that earlier. You can see it's pretty much flush with the bottom of the car. This is our inlet for our oil into our oil water pump right here. So that's what I'm saying. If you get a glance at this tank, all this oil is sitting on this tank at all times, ready to go into the oil water pump. So there is a lot of oil sitting up there, and setting it at the minimum mark on the dipstick is not shorting your engine of oil because all this oil is already always sitting up here. This pump right here, this is different stages where this is pulling the oil out of the pan and also creating a vacuum in the engine. That is for performance. That's just how dry sumps inherently work. You don't want that windage in there. You don't want the oil sitting in there. You want all the oil in the tank so it can provide a constant supply of oil to your pump. And also with having the crankcase under a vacuum, you can run a lower tension ring set on your piston rings. You have better cylinder sealing, better combustion, and engine makes more power with them. So A lot of benefits back there, but you want to check for leaks. You'll obviously see obvious leaks from the oil water pump, from the oil pan. The water pump is up here. You just want to check all of that stuff for leaks. This one is very good. Engine mounts, common failure point. We all know Ferrari, a lot of heat, a lot of vibration. Those fail, so give those a good look over. You know, on this engine right here on the block, you can see that oil grime. So there's been a little bit of fluid that's leaked up on there and allowed grease and grime and dirt to kind of collect. That's normal. I'm not going to say that's a failure or an oil leak or any real issue right there. That's pretty typical. And you don't have much of a view of your valve cover gaskets on the bottom side because of all of your heat shielding and your exhaust manifolds up there. These exhaust manifolds, way superior to a 430 that we have there. Huge improvement. They do not crack and fail pretty much. Like I said, I just had that one challenge car that did it, but that challenge car is a way different life than a street car. So they definitely uncharacteristically fixed that problem. So you don't have to worry about those too much. I still do smoke test exhaust on my inspections to be sure, but the failure rate of these is virtually none. And we got front of our engine, our crank pulley and drive belt. There's our AC compressor and then our power steering pump, and I'll get you guys up in there. A lot of grease and grime you guys can see. And if you guys have watched the channel much, I have a video on a 430 where I talk about that specific leak right up there. So when I covered this topic in that other video, we were working on a 430, but I did mention within that video that this issue really plagues a lot of cars, V12s, V8s. It's really the chain-driven cars when they moved away from the timing belts. They kind of all suffer this issue. So I suggest you guys jump over and take a peek at that video because I show what's happening and explain it really well. So really at the end of the day, this leak is actually an issue with the head gasket. There's a piece of silicone that gets dislodged. It is a very minor leak, and since the drive belt is right there in such close proximity, it just whips up so much dust from the rubber belt itself, dust from the engine bay. There's a lot of windage moving around, and it gets so caked on with all that layer of grease and grime. What we saw in this car and that 430 in the other video I mentioned, I deem normal. Normal as in every car I look at, I expect to find it. You're going to find it to some degree. I don't say it's normal in the sense that it should be that way. It should not be that way in my opinion. And like I said, it's a failed head gasket. In that video, I talk about what I've done in the past trying to reseal it via timing cover gasket with low success rate. Like I said, you go check the video out. But what I'm getting at is I expect to see that on every car. It's pretty much normal. The cost to fix that correctly is unjustifiable in my opinion, and it really doesn't make any sense. It's not leaking oil where it's dripping. It's not going to lose oil. The oil's not leaking on the other areas around it. It's not getting on the drive belt. It's really causing no harm at all. It's just dirty and ugly. Every time I inspect a car, I see it. I still note it to the customer because I don't want to look at a car, even though it's normal and every car has it, not note it and tell the customer and then say he has someone else look at the car and they're like, look at this leak, and then I never told him. So I do mention it every time, but there's always just this gigantic asterisk to it where it's not really a huge problem. We don't really need to address anything right now. It's normal, and that's really why I made that other video, so I can point them to that video and help them watch that video, have the visuals, see the pictures, and understand exactly what is going on. You know, the engine in a 458 versus a 430 is just basically a modification or a revised version of a 430 engine. It's essentially the same engine, different intake. Obviously, like they might change the ports in the cylinder heads and some smaller things, but it's basically the same engine except it's direct injected. Obviously, it's a little bit bigger in displacement, and they've made changes to evolve it. I think that's the right word, evolve. It's not a complete redesign. It is the same basic core engine. I'm sure if we got down to the nitty-gritty, we would find that they use a lot of the same components. Externally, it looks a little bit different. Valve covers are different. Oil water pumps different, stuff like that. But the basic philosophy behind it, it's exactly the same. It's the same gasket, same junction point, same failure path. So moving on from that leak, let's get back under here. And I'm not sure if there's much else to cover. You can see we have the bottom of our fuel tanks right here. This is our fuel crossover pipe that feeds into our other tank over here, so they are connected. We've got our starter up there. Check your CV axles. Your cooler lines up here, they can crack and start the leak. It's more of a challenge car thing, so if you have a car that you track a lot, sees a lot of heat and vibration and hard driving, it's where they crimp these lines where they sit into the transmission, they'll tend to crack and cause some issues for you. So you might have a leak back there and think that it's actually a O-ring, where it turns out that it's actually a cracked cooler line. And spinning around, now we're looking towards the front of the car, and you can see what I was talking about, all the hard lines that run up under the car. So there's really no point of removing any of this, because you're just going to look at, 6 feet of that. The hard line, there's really no failure points up there unless you see an external impact point. We got pretty good visibility under here, like I mentioned. You can see, because I have the fender liners out, our access for everything. So I think that's pretty much going to cover everything on the bottom side of the car. I'm not sure if I'm missing a whole lot. 458s, like I mentioned, they are really a significant improvement over the 430, in my opinion, on terms of reliability, cost of maintenance, technology, the car in itself. It's a completely different platform, and it's kind of with the traditional, or within the traditional era of Ferrari, where it is an evolution of a 430 engine with a completely new platform on a car. Because if you think of a 430, that is a completely new, or evolution of the platform of the car, but a completely new engine over a 360. And as you go backwards, you see that they alternate in between model years, where one model, they update the chassis of the car, make small revisions to the engine. The next model, they make small revisions of the chassis of the car, significant changes to the engine, and it just kind of leapfrogs all the way through. The 458 to the 488 is kind of the last of that cycle. Then they kind of went for a third version with almost the same engine, same chassis with the F8, and kind of deviated, and that is all around when Ferrari went public, and a lot changed with the brand there, which we all know. But what to look for in your 458, that's a big crash course. Specifics, highlights. You want to check your suspension, your MagneRide. You're going to want to check your gearbox pressure sensors, make sure they're good. Obviously check your brake wear, smaller things, tire pressure sensor, battery life, things of that nature. Some of the key areas on damage you're going to expect to see. We all know what to inspect when we're looking at the body, getting that stuff taken care of. Sticky buttons. As I say, these cars were brand new when I was working at the dealer. I'm trying to reflect and look back and think of unusual things that I had to diagnose and deal with in the cars. A few weird check engine lights and issues like that. But interior-wise, electronically, the cars are solid. I don't really have any memories of really digging deep in these cars. I mean, I've dug deep in these cars, but it's usually for modifications or crash damage or other reasons. But for a simple repair, I have to say, 458's very solid. This particular car we have here, incredibly solid, great condition. It has some small needs, but nothing big, nothing bad. Client got a great car when he purchased this, and I think that with what we have planned for it in the shop, we're going to make it even better. Well, I really hope I'm not forgetting anything on what to look for in an inspection on a 458. I'll be very honest with you guys. I am just winging it and going off memory. I did not write things down or really do much research ahead of time before I looked at this car. I'm just really recapping you guys with what I've always done all these years and what I remember by looking at this car. So I'm sure there's some things I probably missed. And also, I want to know your guys' feedback. What do you think about me doing more technical, real nerdy, I mean, we're talking real technical videos where I could dive deeper into the function of that dual clutch gearbox. I can talk more about how the MagneRide system works. We can talk more about that Eldor Ion. That's all stuff that I really have wanted to dive into. And, this being the first, I would consider, newer Ferrari I've had on the channel. We've had a lot of the older cars, which I love deeply. But this is the first of the cars where we start to get some actually decent technology in the car. The way the cars network and interface. This has the whole Florence electrical system, so it has the NQS, or not the NQS, but the NBC at the body computer. So it's very, very different electronically than a 458. So I have a lot of ideas that I've always had where I can make a lot of deep technical videos, but I'm not sure if there's an appetite for you guys to watch that stuff, because you guys know me, I'll end up talking in circles and really nerd out, and just let me know if that's what you want to see more of, and maybe I'll try to put one together as a tester and see how it goes. But in general, 458s, I am a big fan. I've always been a big fan. I really enjoy these cars. They are fantastic. They're really starting to accelerate on their appreciation. I'm very fond of these cars because they were brand new when I worked in the dealership. This particular 458, it's even better. It's got all the carbon fiber. I mean, the only thing this car does not have is a front lift. That is the only option it does not have. It is a well-optioned and well-configured car, and I'm really excited to see what else we're going to be doing to the car. So I actually need to wrap this video up so that way I can get a hold of the client tonight and we can carry that conversation, because we do have more work planned for the car. I already know a little bit, but I think that might grow and expand a little bit after I looked at the car. So keep an eye out on the channel. You're going to see more of this car, a lot of great content. As always, guys, I wanted to take a second and thank you for your support. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the channel. For those of you that have joined my channel membership program, I thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. It means a lot to me. You guys know the drill. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment below, forward it to a friend, and if you're not subscribed to the channel at this point, you need to be subscribed. Hit the subscribe button. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.